Can I invite Assembly Member Russell to ask her lead question, please?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, my questions are for Deputy Mayor for Culture, Justine Simons, and specifically about issues facing Londoners in creative industries and the part the culture sector may play in the recovery process. So at Tuesday's Economy Committee meeting, you talked about the scale of the impact the pandemic has had on London's creative workers. You highlighted the risk that 150,000 people in the arts may lose their jobs and that 16 billion may be lost from an industry which before COVID was worth 58 billion a year to London's economy. So can you tell me how the Recovery Board and its 9 missions will help to stop this from happening so the city doesn't lose the skills of these creative workers nor its leading reputation for arts and culture?
Thanks, Caroline. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeed.
Great. Okay, maybe what I'll do then is kind of unpack the culture work for you because the culture work that we're doing spreads across all of the missions. And perhaps what I'll do is try and kind of unpack that a bit for you so it perhaps makes a bit more sense.
That would be helpful, but be aware that I'm against a clock, so if you can be as precise as I can.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so, I mean, the immediate stuff we're doing around recovery is, as you know, all of our culture at risk work. So that is all about supporting individuals and small businesses, largely in London. We've got 700 odd cases on the at-risk register right now. We had our kind of emergency funding, 2.3 million, that went to 300 organisations, and that trickled down to support over 11,000 artists. So we kind of designed it so it would reach individuals. So it helped individual artists to hold on to their studios. Specifically, the creative enterprise zones have been a kind of really important kind of frontline service in a way. They've really come into their own in COVID. They've created a kind of a conduit for support to flow into individuals and small businesses. So just looking at what happened in the 6 zones through the COVID period since March, what we know is that they collectively helped to protect 1,000 jobs and supported 300 organisations and managed to leverage in an extra 1.6 billion. So there's lots more, but I guess in the view of time, there are some of the kind of highlights of how we've been designing our programmes to support the creative industries really directly.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear about all of those different things that are going on, and in particular that 1.6 billion being leveraged in because
1.6 million.
Only a million, 1.6 million. So actually, Justine, these are clearly good projects, but it is a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of what the culture industry faces. Now, you talked on Tuesday about how Brent, as Borough of Culture this year, has been developing COVID-safe ways to engage people in cultural activities. Do you think there are lessons from this work that might help reboot the Central Activity Zone, which has been harder hit than anywhere else in the UK? I think in October last year, their footfall was just 40% of previous pre-COVID levels.
Yes, I think they are. I think we're in a kind of live learning situation, I think, around events, around culture, especially around outdoor events. The other thing I mentioned when we spoke earlier this week was about the World Cities Culture Forum. So we're actually in a kind of live global conversation about how to stage events, how to bring culture back into areas to enable it to play its kind of full role in kind of rebooting those areas and bringing people back. So I think there's lots to be learned from Brent, for sure. There's other festivals and cultural organisations across the capital who've been learning a lot. Greenwich and Docklands Festival did a kind of deconstructed festival where rather than inviting everyone into one place, they kind of unpacked it so it happened at a very hyper-local level. The Brent work was all about kind of the public realm. It was an outdoor biennale. We can see lots of different examples from around the world. So, I think it's, you're right. There's lots and lots to kind of rapidly assimilate, so that we can use it to design the best possible or most impactful programme to open up Central London.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's really important that we think, while arts workers clearly need our support, they also have a really important part to play with their creativity in how that recovery comes about. Now, prior to the pandemic, there were already accessibility issues in London's cultural sector, both in terms of work opportunities and chances to enjoy and participate in cultural events. So do you agree that the recovery programme is an ideal opportunity to address this long-standing issue? And what ideas do you have to improve accessibility, both of access to creative jobs and participation for audiences?
Yeah, good question. So I'm just kind of noting it down. So about recovery, ability of recovery to boost jobs and participation. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I agree on both counts.
It's about addressing inequality. It's about, we've had problems of accessibility in terms of the range of people who are able to get into jobs in the arts, but also for disabled people.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, again, just to kind of go for specifics, I agree with the premise, definitely. This has got to be a moment to kind of shift the dial on this issue. Perhaps I'll give you one example of a thing that's in the pipeline, which is, so I spoke the other day about how the creative industries is coming back at different kind of rates, and so the film and screen industries are getting going much earlier than other aspects of the creative economy. Things like the performance and live industries find it much harder because of the social distancing requirements. But film, led a lot by the Mayor's Film Agency, Film London, has been able to develop these protocols. So we have got the industry kind of rebooting. About 85% is back up and running. And now why that's important is because of the jobs pipeline. So we understand that there's about 40,000 jobs in the film industry in the pipeline, which is an incredible opportunity, and lots of them entry level. So that's something we want to really grab hold of and make sure that we really use this big moment to open up access to those jobs. So one of the things that we've been working collaboratively with Jules's team on is this notion of a dedicated kind of skills piece around that. So a Creative Skills Academy, for example. So that's one of the ideas in the pipeline. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's definitely an opportunity to shift down.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I've got one final question, which is about musicians and creative workers who lost their freedom of movement since EU exit, and now have a problem where they need visas for every single country where they're working. And this is something that is affecting the music industry in particular, but all creative workers as they move towards the recovery. Now, we heard from Maddie Timont-Jack from the Institute for Government at the Assembly EU Exit Working Group recently that government will need to renegotiate a separate deal for these workers, that it can happen, but it does need the political will to go ahead. Now, I'm just wondering, I understand the Mayor wrote to the Culture Secretary echoing industry and cross-party calls for help for these musicians and creative workers. So can I ask if the Mayor has heard back from the Culture Secretary and what more you are doing to support musicians and creative workers who are campaigning for a visa scheme to sort this problem out?
Yeah, to my knowledge, the Mayor hasn't had a response to that letter, but we can check. But to my knowledge, he has not had a response.
If you could check, that would be
for sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's a disaster. I think Brexit is the kind of part of a double whammy. We've got all the challenges to the creative economy from Brexit, from COVID, and then on top of that, Brexit, which has massively disadvantaged this kind of like vital industry for us. As you say, there's no free travel for artists. So tours at the moment are kind of collapsing. The National Theatre, it was reported the other day, I'm sure you saw it, and they're not mounting any European tours until the situation is sorted out. Broadcast rights are not agreed. IP is unresolved. in its totality for the UK, it's a £117 billion industry, you know, so...
Justine, I'm out of time, but it would be reassuring to know that you are really on the case with this, because I think it will, you know, the arts sector does so much for London's economy, and it is such an important part of the recovery. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.